All right, everybody, welcome to the second annual NEK Stand Strong Opioid Memorial and Awareness Walk. Thank you so much for joining us today. Woohoo! Now, bear with us. We have a microphone for all the awesome speakers today, but it doesn't get us up front. So we're just going to kind of play around where people are going to stand, and if they can speak loud enough without the mic, they may come up closer. My name is Sunny Naughton, and I'm so excited to be here with you today as your MC. Just a couple of housekeeping tips. We have raffles. There's probably over $500 worth of services and goods from our local community. They're $1 a raffle, so please feel free to join in there. Everything that NEK Stand Strong brings you is they fundraise for. So everything you see today is the hard work of the people that are a part of this organization. Also, if you need to use the restrooms, the Chamber of Commerce is open today. So you can go back down that way where you came in and use the bathrooms inside. We are so excited. We have a lot of awesome local speakers for you today and some information about this continuum of services. This is really a day about memory, and also it's about coming together and recharging. Everybody here has been affected by the opioid crisis and by other substances, and we really need that time together to celebrate the good work that we have done and also remember those that have struggled and are maybe still struggling and rise them up alongside us. So we have a really exciting guest during the second half. We're going to have some speakers, we're going to walk, and then Brandon Novak is joining us. He flew in late last night into Boston, and a group of us drove down there. So we want to give a shout out to Charlie Radizak, who drove 8 hours last night with a couple of us straight through to get Brandon. So we're so glad that worked out. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to the organizers of NEK Stand Strong so they can tell you more about their organization and we can get this awesome celebration going. Thank you so much.
Can everyone hear me? Good afternoon. I'm Tara Patton. This is Michelle Rossi. So I started my group NEK Stand Strong about 3 years ago after my best friend had died of a fentanyl overdose. The first time I met Charlie, I knew we were going to be friends. He was kind, funny, smart, optimistic, and a spectrum of complexities. I didn't previously think I could exist within. I didn't think that could exist within a single person. Sorry, I haven't had a lot of sleep. Like a first love, you don't forget your first best friend. You don't shake that first understanding that someone can look at you and accept you for all of your flaws. Charlie and I met in junior high, and we were friends for 20 years. December 19, 2014 is a day that will haunt me for the rest of my life. So you don't lose your best friend to addiction all at once. No, you lose him slowly, piece by piece. Sorry, I'm shaking. You lose him slowly, piece by piece, in a slow evolution of regret and conflict. Not a single day goes by when you don't hope for him to miraculously come back. When you don't think of the hundreds of ways that you might have been able to save him. You don't forget your first best friend, and Charlie was no exception to that rule. I believe change begins with awareness. If we continue bravely sharing our stories of addiction, recovery, and hope, then the world will see soon enough that all those currently suffering from addiction are not lost causes. The more people that share their stories, the more we can chip away at the stigma. And I want to show you that life after addiction is absolutely possible. And here are a few incredible stories to prove that. And I'd like to introduce you to my friend, Travis Blake, who is also a part of NEK Stand Strong.
Hi everyone, my name's Travis. I grew up right here in Newport. Currently part of NEK Stand Strong, but a few years ago I was on the other side of the fence. My drug use started after high school. I went off to college. I wasn't at home anymore. I didn't have anybody to really hold me accountable besides myself. I didn't realize until I started experimenting with drugs that I had a very addictive personality, and not long after the experimenting began, I remember one day waking up feeling completely awful, and I wasn't sure what was happening to me. That was the first time I ever experienced withdrawals from drugs. like Tara said, awareness, education, those are the two biggest things that we can bring to this area right now. We turn on the news every day, someone has passed away from this awful disease, and the stigma is very real. I was ashamed as an addict to open up to anybody that I was struggling. It's something that you isolate with, and luckily I had an amazing man come into my life who's here today supporting me. Everybody's path to recovery is different, and my path was through the Lord Jesus Christ. And I can tell you that I had to become part of the BART clinic over here in Newport, and I'm happy to say that as of March 4th of this year, I am no longer a part of the clinic after 2 years. My weeks are pretty full at this point. You know, I work a full-time job. I have 2 little boys and another one on the way, and it's all about keeping yourself accountable. I have one night a week where I don't have a meeting or a group that I attend with the brothers from my church or a couples group that I do. This is going to be with me for the rest of my life. October 19th of this year, I'll celebrate 3 years clean from heroin. But I know numerous people that have been in recovery. You know, they've thrown away 10 years, 15 years, and you know, people who haven't lived it, you know, most of my family, I had a couple brothers who struggled a little bit here, but I was one who went in head first, and I can tell you that I went to the pits of hell, and thank God for, you know, the men at my church. I started with a men's group, and now I haven't missed a Sunday unless I was doing something like this for service in almost a couple of years. This morning while I was at church, the message was about being a purveyor of hope. That's our church's goal for this year, is to have people in the community be purveyors of hope. Everywhere you look in this world today is full of hopelessness. People are looking for instant satisfaction, and that's what drugs provided me for a long time. We have an amazing speaker here today, and I steal one of his quotes all the time, and it's sobriety gave me everything that drugs promised me. Drugs promised me the world, and they ended up taking it from me. You know, I had to hit my rock bottom as everyone else has, and I didn't come from a background where I didn't have a loving family, where I didn't have friends that were there caring for me. I know there's a lot of addicts out there struggling that do not have the support system that I have, and for them it is more difficult. But we all live in this community together. This is all something that affects every one of us here. And if it hasn't affected you yet, I pray that it never does, but you might have young kids at this point. I know we're all concerned about the world that they're growing up in today. I have one entering kindergarten and one entering first grade, and it's already on my mind the things that they're going to see and think that is normal, because it's already changed so much in the 10 years since I've been out of school. I'm so thankful that you all came out today. There's been so much hard work behind the scenes to put this event together, and I just want you all to know, if you know someone struggling, the worst thing you can do is keep quiet about it. It's not going to be an easy road, but I'm here standing today to show you that there is another side to addiction. Mine was in the Lord Jesus Christ, and I put my faith in Him every day. I was a wreck coming up here, and He's just flowing through me. You know, you gotta start living for other people. As an addict, you're self-centered. You live for yourself. I mean, the lies covered up the lies, and finally I just realized that there was nowhere else to turn, and I know that we all know somebody at that point. So if someone is struggling, you can reach out to me. There's plenty of people here. Everyone needs hope in their life, and right now we live in a hopeless, post-Christian world. So please, if there's anything that I can do for any of you, don't feel afraid to reach out to me after. Thank you.
Organizing this today. Awesome. So now I'm excited to bring up some of my friends from the Journey to Recovery Community Center. We have Brandon Malchuk, Mike Lucier, and Sierra Ruth. I have the pleasure of working and being friends with these 3 lovely community members. They're going to tell you a little bit about what the Journey to Recovery Community Center can offer our community, and then we have another wonderful speaker. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sonny. Hi, my name is Mike Lucier, and I work at the Journey to Recovery Community Center on 3rd Street. There, I meet and greet visitors. I facilitate all recovery meetings. I am also a recovery coach coordinator. The recovery coach coordinators are peers that are in long-term recovery. We also have family members of people in recovery are available to talk with family members. Also available at the center are AA meetings, Refuge to Recovery meetings. We have arts and crafts. We plan events and activities. We welcome anyone to come join us in there. Our groups or activities, anyone to come join us there just to come and have coffee, to sit down. It's a good place just to be able to get off the streets and meet new people and friends. Well, that's about it. As a lot of you know, I struggle with addiction myself, and the journey to recovery saved my life. So I believe it can help you and save you. And this is Brandon Melshot. He's the director at the Journey to Recovery Center.
I don't have much to say. I'd just like to introduce another amazing employee at the Journey to Recovery Center, which is Sierra Ruth, who's going to tell you a little bit about her story.
Hi, I'm a little awkward, so don't mind me. So my name is Sierra Ruth, and I struggled with opiates since age 14. I'm 24 years old. I'm a Pennsylvania native. And I remember when I was still in elementary school, and teachers and police officers would hold an assembly for the DART program. I remember the cheesy commercials on TV warning us about what happens when we smoke pot. We would melt into the couches and not be fun anymore. I was an honor roll student throughout school. I played softball for high school as a catcher. I had college scouts who would keep my games. Yes, I know I sound like an all-around American girl. I had everything I needed: clothes, food, a roof over my head. To anyone looking in at my life, they would see a happy family, at least on the outside. From a young age, I was diagnosed with extreme anxiety. I remember the doctors checking to see if I had ADHD, and they were asking me questions. All I could think about was saving the ocean and marine life. And I was also an environmental nerd, so I'm going to throw that out there too. My anxiety stemmed from a traumatic childhood. I lived in flight and fight mode, constantly feeling like I was walking on eggshells. My stepfather, who had been in my life since I was 2 years old, was the main reason for my anxiety. It's not me this time. To think that he should have protected me, but instead, I remember him holding me up by my neck against the wall so that my feet couldn't touch the ground. Anything set him off. If I looked at him the wrong way, or if I didn't clean something to his expectation, I stayed in a constant state of fear until I was 21, and it wasn't until I was older that I began to fight back. And we would literally get into fist fights until someone called the cops and took me away in handcuffs for being an unruly, aggressive teenager. Not only was he the reason for my anxiety, but he also became my dealer and provider. Due to my brother being autistic, all medication was kept in my stepfather's room. So when I would go to him for some Tylenol or ibuprofen, he was actually giving me Percocet. I knew what heroin and crack was, but I didn't know what an opiate was. And before I knew it, I was hooked. From the age of 14, I became an addict. In and out of treatments and psych wards, being a guinea pig for new medications a psychiatrist put me on. I didn't want this life. I never asked for it. Please, I just wish someone would have asked, what happened to you instead of what did you do? I reached a point where I didn't care if I lived or died when I used, and then April 5th, 2016, it happened. I overdosed. I remember hearing my name being yelled, and I could feel people shaking me, but I couldn't answer or move. I was a prisoner in my body. I truly thought this was it. My suffering, my pain, my battles were over. I do not remember a lot of my trip in the ambulance, that wasn't mine, or the ride to the emergency room. But after my body was flushed, after being administered Narcan, and my EKGs, I was taken to the psych ward. When I woke, there was someone next to me, and it turns out it was the first responder who had came to the scene. He stayed hours during my treatment just so he could make a pinky promise pact with me that I was going to get help and do something truly amazing with my life. That sentence stuck with me. A stranger saw more worth in my being than I saw in myself. Well, Officer Drew Schaefer from Northern Regional Police Department, I'm still sticking with my pact. I reached 2 years clean and sober April 5th, 2018. And I'm still going strong. I work at Journey to recovery community center and I help people who are in the shoes I was once in. I became a recovery coach and it's brought my recovery story full circle. I try to be that person that my first responder was to me. Addicts are not bad people. They need love and they need help. I, along with everyone else on this stage is proof that we do recover. We can do this, and I am now an advocate for people struggling with addictions. The world can always look down on me because I had a substance abuse disorder, but I no longer care what the world sees me as. At Journey to Recovery Community Center, I'm Sierra. All the other labels are gone, and I'm home. I found my home, my true family, and most importantly, I found myself. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Sierra. I get to work with Sierra almost every day, and she is just amazing. There's not the right words to describe how wonderful she is. So thank you so much for getting up and sharing that story with our community and for joining our community, right? She's going to stay in Vermont. So now we want to invite Ron from Aspenti Health to come up. Ron actually reached out to me in my role as Regional Prevention Partnerships Coordinator a few months ago and just shared that his organization, come on up, Ron, had some educational opportunities for communities. So some of you may know we are building a prevention, intervention, treatment, and recovery collaborative right now. Many community members and partners are coming together, so we may have more opportunities to work with Ron. But for now, we wanted to invite him to speak a little bit about the Good Samaritan Law and also talk about Narcan briefly today. And then he and his colleague will be available as well to chat more one-on-one if you'd like to talk with him. So we thank them for coming from Burlington, right, on this beautiful day. So here you go, Ron.
Excuse me, thank you. I think it's important that I first stake my seat at the recovery table. I myself am in long-term recovery from alcohol, and addiction has once again impacted our family. And so I'm literally honored to be here. My company, Aspenti Health, hired me to start a social impact program, which is about ways to connect and collaborate with communities to address the opioid crisis and addiction in general, as well as provide education on demand. And in talking with Michelle and Sonny and Tara, they asked that as a company that provides urinalysis as part of a patient's treatment plan, so that providers know that drugs that are supposed to be taken are being taken, and those that are not supposed to be taken are not being taken. And if there are blips, the urinalysis allows the provider an opportunity to sit down with the patient and say, what can we do together to ensure that we continue a path towards recovery? So, and I'll keep my remarks brief, so I made notes, so my gift to you is brevity. Opioid use affects three parts of us. Our body naturally produces what's called noradrenaline. Noradrenaline maintains our muscle tone so that we're able to walk, our alertness, our mental acuity, and respiration. Utilizing opioids eliminates the production of noradrenaline, so the opposite of what noradrenaline does actually happens. We become less alert. We begin to nod off. Oftentimes our muscles completely will give out. Respiration can become very shallow. And if enough opioids are utilized, it can also lead to cardiac arrest. And certainly discontinuing opioid use, the body produces noradrenaline at a rate to catch up. And so what's commonly known as the jitters or anxiety or nausea is your body producing what it's supposed to do. And therefore, as it's doing that, many of these are withdrawal symptoms. Narcan is an opioid overdose reversal kit. It's literally something that's on steroids. It's called an antagonist. And how Narcan works, the opioids which attach to receptors in our brain, Narcan literally rips them off. It eliminates the euphoric effect, but it also counteracts the respiration, the muscle tone, and the alertness. So oftentimes when people are given Narcan, That's why they awake in sometimes a very startled and confused state. And as part of the Narcan, I have some brochures that I brought from the Department of Health, which I will leave on the table out there, which specifically talk about the use of Narcan. Narcan just should not be used in and of itself. It must be used in concert with dialing 911 and rescue breathing if necessary, because the half-life or the length of an opioid is much longer than the life-saving measures of Narcan. So if somebody is administered Narcan and medical attention is not given, they can very easily overdose again a second time when it seems like everything is correct. Now there's a lot of stigma associated with opioid use disorder, and there's also a lot of misunderstanding. And Vermont has something which is called the Good Samaritan Law. And I'm going to read you a couple of small parts from the House Bill 65 and the House Bill 522. H65 provides protection for all drug offenses. Including dispensing and sales. This means that offenders will not be arrested, prosecuted, or convicted for any drug-related offense if they call 911 in the event of an overdose. It also protects against civil asset forfeiture, and this means that it provides protection against the seizure of personal property when medical assistance is sought to an overdose victim. This part of the law is designed to take away any fear or concern for calling 911. Narcan is designed to alleviate overdose symptoms, but that alone cannot save a person's life. It has to be done in concert with calling 911 and if rescue breathing is necessary as well. Now, H522 pertains to actually utilizing Narcan, and it provides for third-party prescription of Narcan to a family member, friend, or other person able to assist a person at risk of experiencing an opioid-related overdose. It also provides healthcare professionals with immunity from criminal and civil liability for such a prescription. Now, as it pertains to us, to simple civilians, it also provides immunity from civil and criminal liability for people who administer Narcan to a person overdose, thereby removing any potential barrier to using the drug. Again, I'm honored to be here. It's incredible what this community is doing, and this walk certainly symbolizes the importance of these events to raise awareness, increase education, and reduce stigma. So thank you very much.
Thank you again so much for joining us. And like I said, it will be available if anybody wants to chat individually. So thank you so much. Now I'm excited to welcome up some more of my friends. So we have Allie Howell, who is going to join me. Tennyson Marceau is going to come on up, and then Brandon Novak. And we are going to do some community thank yous and then have some more speeches. All right, so Allie, I'm going to go first. We just want to thank our community so much who has supported this event for the past 2 years. And as Travis mentioned earlier, putting the event on takes a lot of effort. So we have a group of volunteers who's worked really hard last year and this year as well, really for the past 2 months, meeting every week. So we want to thank Adam Patton, Allie, who's up here with me, Brendan Malchuk, Brendan Novak, Charlie Radizak, Emily and Earl. We want to thank Jen Harlow. We want to thank Michelle Rossi, Mike Lucier, Sierra, Ruth. We want to definitely thank Tara Patton for her wonderful idea, Tennyson Marceau for joining us today, and Travis Blake. And then Allie, you have some people you want to thank as well.
So we want to thank the Tavern, East Main General Store, Right Wheels, Ron White, Shattuck Motors, Pick and Shovels, Shaw's, Price Chopper, Vista, JP, Steve Wright, Rentals, the Spates Family, Hoagie's, Pie and Pasta, RDI, Brenda's Home Cooking, Derby Line Village Inn, Spates the Florist, the Church of God, North Point Dealership, the Brown Cow, especially Erica Gray, Jennifer Jarvis Attorneys, Drew Otto, Jim Campbell, Delabriers, Meg Conley of Conley Country, and Stacy's Sweet Simplicity. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And now we will have some other guests join us up on the stage. If Brandon has some more thank yous, I think we were going to have him offer our community, and then one more speaker before we get walking.
Hey, I want to thank Derek of Newport Inn & Suites, Derby Four Seasons, DJ Loud, NEK decals, t-shirts, Christian Kerner poster, Memphmagog, please. Memphmagog, say that 10 times fast. Press. City of Newport, Newport City Police Department, Journey to Recovery Community Center, Regional Prevention Partnership Grant, Michelle Tarek of Northeast Kingdom Learning Services, and next but not least, my friend Tennyson.
Hey, can you guys hear me from here? Without using the mic?
Yes.
Yeah? Over there, good? Alright, cool. Alright, I'd rather not use the mic. Right down here with you. So my name is Tennyson Marceau. I'm a person in long-term incarcerated recovery with an underlying issue of substance use disorder. Now, what that means to me and what that actually means is that what Travis Blake was saying earlier, that we are our own person and it's different, the recovery for each and every one of us. This is not a one-set system where we're going to find this cure right here for everybody and just put it in place and that we're all going to be cured. No, we need individual help on the community level from the entire community to jump on board, show the love, and help out somebody that is struggling. Now that could be somebody who is struggling with the abuse themselves, or that could be somebody struggling as a family member who is watching somebody go through the abuse. It is not only about the person that is going through it. We all go through it. I know my mother went through it when I went to prison for 10 years because, of course, I did long-term incarceration and now I'm in the recovery process from that. I am going to be in that. It's a constant reminder to stay on the path that I want to stay on. Now, am I cured from that? You know, I actually believe I am because I have such a strong will to actually live and move forward without going back to that. But I also realize that I could go back to that. So I have to stay in the present moment right now to stay focused, stay on track, help people so that can help me in the future, okay? Now, I started, actually, let's go all the way back to where I am today. And this is not because I'm bragging, but this is to show hope to each and every one of you out there. It doesn't matter if you're a family or a person in recovery, but this is hope that I could go from a 10-year-old boy starting with my addictions and go all the way to be a prevention specialist today after doing 10 years in prison. Or I could go till today, I'm a published author. I write about my story. I founded Prisoner for Freedom. I founded Convict Fitness. I was a co-founder part of the Flex Your Face. Not a real co-founder, but I was one of the ones in the movement that elevated it up to here. I volunteered all my services for the U.S. Probation Department for all the people that were indicted and going into federal prison because I did my time in federal prison and I knew the ins and outs. Why not help them? I volunteer whenever I can. I volunteer here today, share my story so it can help other people. So that's where I am. And I'm actually glad that I went through all the stuff that I did. Because I have a quote, experiences may be failures, but people often fail to experience. We need to experience these failures just like Thomas Edison in light bulb. He failed 1,000 times to make that light bulb work. He just didn't fail in the same way. We gotta keep trying, keep pushing. If we fail, find a different way to fail and keep failing. But we just gotta keep moving, guys. We gotta keep moving and keep pushing. So when I started with my addiction at 10, smoking marijuana, Did I really know what it was? No, I didn't know what it was. It was just something cool to do. You know, I moved back to this community. I'm from St. Jay, from Lindenville, Danville. I do a lot of work here in Newport with Sonny, because I also work on the RPP grant with them, just in a different county. So it didn't just stop there. I took it above and beyond. By the time I hit 16, my life was pretty much over. My brain was so far gone from using heroin, from using coke, from using pills, from using anything that I could find, because I had no direction in my life, that I was literally insane. I was in a psychotic psychosis where I could not come back from that. Or I did not think that I could come back from that at that time. My friends that I had, who I thought were my friends, now I know today, those weren't my friends at all. Would I give them another chance? Right now, yes, I would. Until they proved to me that they couldn't be my friend. Because I also need to protect myself. We also need to surround ourselves with a good group of people. So by the time I hit 19, going through all of this, getting right out of high school, figuring out what am I gonna do, I ended up breaking the law because I had that underlying issue of substance use disorder. I ended up getting in big trouble, facing over 30 years in federal prison. I was lucky to only get 10 when they dropped 2 charges, only hit me with 1. And I only had a cap because I was 19, first time in trouble. I had a cap of 10 years. I was looking at over 15 just on that 1 charge with the enhancements. So I count that a blessing. And today I sit here and I'm like, thank you. This whole experience was great. People are like, oh man, that's crazy. Why are you saying that? You know what? That made me who I am today. All this stuff, and I can't go through it all with you guys today. I don't have enough time. But all that stuff I went through in federal prison, dealing with the gang violence, dealing with the different type of people, because in there I was the minority, learning the ropes from other convicts. You know, I was scared, and I'll be the first one to admit that. Heck yeah, I was scared. I went to Lewisburg, USP at 20 years old with a 40-foot wall. Yeah, that was not a great place to be at 20. You know, and then actually accepted my life. It took me like 3 years inside my sentence to be like, you know what, this is okay. This is where I live today, and that is how I learned how to live in the moment. That is how I learned how to deal with loneliness. A lot of people have fear about being alone. That's why they want to surround themselves with just people in general. But could you just sit here today and be like, you know what, I'm going to take a month off. I'm just going to be by myself. Mentally, I'm going to be fit. You know, if you do that and not be mentally stable, as far as, you know, you're not in a depressed state and you don't isolate yourself, then it is actually good if you can take time and sit back and be like, I can deal with myself being alone. A lot of people can't do that. They need attention. They need somebody around. And a lot of people with a substance use disorder, they crave that attention. They want to go up, oh man, I need these friends. But they don't actually sit back and realize, do I really need them? Or are they just going to be my associates? Or who are they? Who are they going to be? And who are you? It took me a long time to figure out my identity inside, but one thing prison did was it forced me to actually identify myself. I had no career. I had nothing to look forward to. I started tattooing for money in there. It was great. You can't really get money in there at all, and I didn't have any money. I had a great family that supported me like $50 a month, and I'm so grateful for that. Families are huge. People to talk to are huge, even if it's not your family. I have people I call my family that's as close to me as my brother and my sister that are not even close to being family, that I met inside, because we all related to each other. We all helped each other. But yeah, fear. Man, fear and fear itself. Fear is one of the biggest things to get past. Even coming up here today, you gotta break that wall of fear to speak to the public. You gotta break that wall of fear so you can actually go out there and experience something to fail. If we don't fail, then we don't experience, and then we don't move on. Or we don't hit the rock's bottom, see the pebbles in the bottom, start building our own brick and mortar pebbled base. We need to do that, because if we don't, then what do we have to stand on? It's just like a house. If we don't have a good base foundation, what are we standing on? And bring it back to the friends. Has anybody heard of crabs in a bucket? Anybody heard crabs in a bucket? Has anybody seen crabs in a bucket? No? Yeah, what do? They try and get out, right?
They try to crawl out.
Right? So what happens when one gets to the very top of the rim of the bucket? Yeah, exactly. The other one pulls it down. It's just like every other group, when you're in that negative space, that other crab is going to pull it back because it doesn't want to see you go to better things. Or what about boiling frogs? Anybody heard of boiling frogs?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So what happens when you put lukewarm water on, put a frog in there and it's swimming around you? You just, what? You heat it up, right? Is that frog going to stay in there or jump out?
Jump out.
That frog's going to stay in there because it's just gently rising the heat. Eventually that frog's going to die. Now what happens if you put that frog in boiling water? That frog's going to jump right out. So think about that in your life. If you don't really consciously see what's going on in your life, you don't consciously be like, I know this is a negative environment, so I'm going to jump right out. You're going to see that boiling water. But if you just stay there blinded, then you know where you're going to go. You could go right down the path of negativity and even worse. My whole thing that I learned, and that I hope everybody gets here today, is that the law of attraction, what you put out there, you will get back tenfold. Positivity. That mindset being like, today's a good day. I'm going to live in this moment. Today's a good day. I'm going to actually find what that positive moment in the day is today. Will I complain sometimes? Yeah, I'm going to complain. A lot of people are going to complain. I'm not going to sit up here and tell you I'm not going to. But will I try to not do that? Yes. I will try and be on a good path, promote positivity, and move on. You know, I got released in Portland, Maine. I wasn't ready to come back to Vermont yet. I wasn't ready to see my old friends yet. So I spent 2 years in Portland. And right out of prison, you know, they let me ride out from Jessup, Georgia. That's where I was. They let me out to pretty much fend for myself. They gave me a bus ticket and said, get home. It took me 3 days to get to the halfway house. And that's an experience in itself. You go in at 19, then you come out and you're like, whoa, what do I do? You're like, okay, I get on a bus. Okay, I'll figure it out, thanks. 16 hours in Savannah layover. What do I do? Nothing. But I get there and that's where I begin to create my identity. So there is hope for anybody that is even at the very bottom of the rocks right here. There is hope.
Amen.
When they take that and build it. Doesn't matter where you are in life right now, you can always start from the very bottom. That's why we be like, you know, we don't just shrug people off so they can just go fend for themselves. You still show them love. At any point. Now, there is a difference between giving them things that they don't need or giving them money that they don't need where they can feed their own substance use. Support them in other ways, find different ways, show that love. Buy them a meal so they can actually eat it in front of you. Give them resources, Journey to Recovery, Sunny Knot and RPP. There are resources out there, so go ahead and get it. So you guys ready?
Yeah.
You guys ready? Let's go work.
everyone. So when I started NEK Stand Strong, we wanted to do some events and some awareness, and we had an event a couple years ago at the high school, and Brandon spoke. Tim Ryan actually introduced me to Brandon. Tim is also another motivational speaker, and so we called Brandon up again for this year to do the walk, and he gladly said yes. We picked him up last night in Boston, really late. So with further ado, here's Mr. Brandon Novak.
Brandon.
You know, I met Tara, like she just said, 2 years ago. And when I came here 2 years ago, I saw the tireless efforts that she put forth to give a voice to the voiceless, to speak to the people, for the people that can no longer speak because they fell victim to this opioid pandemic that we're in. And immediately upon arrival 2 years ago, I instantaneously fell in love. She greeted me with an open heart, open hands, showed me hospitality, talked with me, not to me or at me, empathy, sympathy, compassion. And when I asked her what her drive was behind this, she shared with me about losing her best friend. And that right there sold me on the fact that, like, I can't stress the importance enough of doing something. I travel all over the nation and the world for that matter, and I speak and they say, what's the answer? What's the answer? And if I had the answer, I would bottle it up, I'd sell it, I'd be a billionaire a billion times over. There is no answer. Where we're at right now in this stage of the game is harm reduction and trial and error. And I'm a big fan of doing something. And if something doesn't work, we learn from that something and we do something else. Because the reality is, in recovery, in advocacy, there's no margin for error, yet it is impossible to do perfect. So when she asked me to come, the first time I came, me and geography are like oil and water, we do not mix. So when she asked me to come, I said, sure. I live right next to the train station. I said, I'll just get on a train and come. 12 hours into that train ride, I was like, what the hell am I doing? But then when I got here, how I felt about what I had just endured with that 12-hour train ride completely changed. So then when she asked me to do it again, I said, absolutely. But I learned from my mistake, and I said, this time I'm booking a flight. Right? I was in Richmond, Virginia yesterday. Booked a flight from Richmond to Burlington, weeks in advance. I get off my flight from Richmond at a layover in DC, and I'm supposed to catch a connecting flight to Burlington. I get off the first flight and they say, Burlington flight canceled. And the next flights out were this morning. And any flight I would have got this morning would not have got me here at 12:30. So once again, Tara, with her tireless efforts to come to some solution to this pandemic that we're in, her and her teammates said, whatever we have to do to make it possible for you to get here, I will do. And all I could do was get a flight to Boston, which didn't get me until 1 a.m. And I'm sure, as you're aware, from Boston to here, a drive is about 4 hours.
Tara had worked for 24 hours prior to my arrival, has not slept. Her and two others were at the airport waiting for me. We drove. We did not arrive back in Burlington until around 4:30. Tara was back up with her team at 10 to make this happen. Therefore, I guess what I'm trying to get at is I don't ever rehearse what I'm going to say. There's no organic message being produced when that happens. And what I've learned in my journey, when I want to make my God laugh, I tell him how my day's going to go. So I let my spirit move me, and this is where I'm being moved to right now, is that it takes a village to raise a child. And for that, I want to thank Tara, Burlington, and everyone here from the bottom of my heart for helping give a voice to the voiceless, or the people that are stuck out there behind that bag, that bottle, that needle, that pill that cannot see past it. So for that, I am eternally grateful. And there's nothing I wouldn't do to help this cause, because what I've learned is that my defects, and what I mean by defects, heroin, cocaine, crack, weed, pills, my defects have become my biggest assets today. With the slightest shift of perception, my defects have become my biggest assets, and I'm going to explain to you why. I work in the treatment industry field, and 99.9% of the calls that I get go like this. Novak, if you can get clean, there's no reason why I can't. Can you help me? Because what I know now, and what I always knew, is addicts, alcoholics, they don't do well with conforming. We have a problem with authority. So when you tell us what we need to do, we tell you why you need to F off because we know. So what I've learned today is that it's about attraction rather than promotion. I don't have to shop recovery. I don't have to sell this new way of life. What I do is I work a really good program in my 12-step program and out of my 12-step program. Because the reality is this. There's not one person in the world that will open up their planner or calendar and say, you know what? June's a great month to go to rehab. Not one person wants to go to rehab nor looks forward to going to rehab. But what I do is, because what I've learned is it's not a one-size-fits-all. This is not a black and white answer to an issue that is not solvable. If it was, I would have got sober at my first treatment center at 17. God willing, I didn't get it till my 13th at 35. And you'll hear that in my story. I just feel compelled to go with where I'm going. So now what I'm trying to do is kind of backdoor treatment into the addicts that don't like to conform, that don't do well with authority, that when you say I need to do this, I tell you why you need to F off because I know. I backdoor in this new way of life. This happy, joyous, free life that I live that does not involve the use of a drink or a drug. And when they say, hey, this is that guy that was deemed unhelpful or unfixable. And how do they know that? Because my life is literally an open book. You can see it on the internet. Anything I tell you today, type my name in on the internet and you'll see the facts that back up my statements through family members, through skateboarders, through therapists, through doctors, lawyers, judges. They say, hey, that guy that was deemed unhelpful or unfixable, that very same guy whose mother bought him a plot, that very same guy who was on life support for 7 days, that very same guy whose family took life insurance policies out on him, that very same guy that had been medevaced to 4 different states and 4 different hospitals for 4 different overdoses, that very same guy that had been in 13 inpatient treatment centers, lowest count of outpatients and detoxes, that very same guy that at the end of his run at 35 years old, after his mother depleted several savings accounts, she had sold 3 homes to financially put me into treatment, had nothing left to give. She went to church across the street from her house. And Father Mike saw her kneeling in a pew crying hysterically. Father Mike said, "Miss Pat, what's wrong?" Miss Pat, my mother said, "Father Mike, it's Brandon. He's never been worse. There's literally nothing else I can do to help him, so I've went to God with one prayer for him." Father Mike said, "Oh yeah, Miss Pat, what's that prayer?" Miss Pat, my mother, says, "Father Mike, it's simple. That prayer consists of, God, please cure him, kill him, or kill me because I can't take it anymore. If that guy can get sober, there's no reason why I can't. Can you help me?" Coming back to my defects have become my biggest assets. And how powerful the universe is. For 24 years, drugs and alcohol were my answer to everything. My answer to everything became my problem to everything. My answer, which turned into my problem, is now my answer to everything again. But the reality is, I'm one of the very, 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 so very blessed few that have made that happen. So me standing up here sharing with you a cautionary tale rarely, if ever at all, happens. You see it in the media, you open the newspapers. 5 addicts died due to a fentanyl-laced overdose heroin batch. Mother buries son after 3rd overdose in a week. So anytime I have a chance to get in front of a group of people that have been affected, that are currently affected, that are innocent bystanders, these kids being affected, that have no say-so in the matter, to give them a shot of hope, a light at the end of this very dark, drab tunnel, how dare I not? Because people like Tara and the team that made this happen, and the parents that sit here praying for their sons or daughters, showed up for me when I didn't show up for myself. They loved me when I didn't love myself. They prayed for me when I didn't pray for myself. Without them, I would not be here, I assure you that, because I had long given up on me. You'll hear at the end of my story, I was the kind of alcoholic that wanted to kill himself on a daily basis, but the hit was I didn't want to hurt myself in the process. I was horrible at suicide because I kept waking up. I was so low, the curve looked like a skyscraper. And who showed up? You people. At first I hated you, I couldn't stand you because I'm the kind of guy, if it doesn't make sense to me, it's wrong. Walked into my very first treatment center, my very first 12-step meeting, looking at it like it was a sentence, to now coming in and being so grateful that a guy that suffered with the disease of addiction for 24 years straight, minus 1 year of incarceration by force, woke up today after just celebrating 3 years of continuous sobriety, deals with a lot of situations in life that don't go my way, and my first thought isn't, get this, my first thought is not, maybe a bag of heroin will make this a little easier. Maybe a glass of wine will make this more dealable. That's not even in my hierarchy of thoughts to revert back to. And that right there is such a blessing. God, it's such a blessing.
Yes.
Amen.
It really is. And I think that by people like you showing up for me. Therefore, I'm eternally grateful. And you'll hear in my story, I keep my past very, very, very close to my present. I keep my past married to my present. Because the moment I forget where I come from, I will return. I've seen me do it. Because the reality is I suffer from a disease called alcoholism, not alcoholism. And I can't stay sober on yesterday's sobriety.
So I do a few simple things along the way each day to maintain my sobriety, and I stick to the basics, so God willing I don't have to go back to the basics. And what I've learned in countless attempts at trying to get sober is that it's much easier to stay sober than get sober. They taught me in treatment, boys do what they want to do, men do what they have to do. And finally, when God saw fit for me to get sober, I came to terms with the fact that the world doesn't have to get right with me, I have to get right with it. Because the common denominator in my problems is me. Because the reality is the drinking and the drugging, for anybody in this audience that suffers, it's not your problem. It is not your problem. It's the gas that fueled the fire to get you in a seat to listen to me. But it's not your problem, it's the solution. The problem for me is my thinking, my attitude, my behavior. So therefore, now when I'm stranded at DC airport last night, flights canceled, flying into Boston, 4-hour drive, nothing but time to kill in the airport, plenty of finances, only thing open is bars, and everyone looks like they're having a really good time, and I know that makes time fly. That didn't even cross my mind. And I don't know about anybody here, but that's only a blessing from my higher power. Now, I don't want to turn anybody off with the word higher power, God. So whatever a power greater than yourself may be, the universe, the sun, the trees, the clouds, you name it, I don't care what it is. I don't even know what mine is. I choose to call him God. I don't know what it looks like. God could be this tree for all I know. But I know he did for me what I could not do for myself, because you'll hear in my story. I had did everything humanly possible to lift me of the obsession or rid me of the desire to drink and drug. And what that looks like, if you're wondering, is moving to Helsinki, Finland, moving to London, moving to Paris, moving all over the United States, changing women, changing homes, changing careers. Because what I didn't know then that I know now is that it was the external. It was the external was the problem. Burlington's the problem, so I'm going to move to Boston. But what I didn't know then that I know now is that I take me with me everywhere I go. I cannot shake my shadow. Statistics state, theoretical evidence dictates that I am to be high or dead right now. The fact that I'm not is A, miraculous, equaling miracle, and B, it defies logic. Going back to talking about that gift that I've been granted. That sadly and unfortunately, today in the nation, 174 people will not be granted this gift. Today in the nation, 174 people will die as a direct result of an opioid overdose, and the numbers are increasing. That means getting bigger. That's worse than the Vietnam War. And the sad thing is that all these deaths are preventable. So if anybody's sitting in this audience and they're waiting for the blessing to happen, please allow me to be the first person to tell you the blessing has already taken place. It's already taken place. 1 out of 5 people will be affected. The disease of addiction does not discriminate. Yale or jail, the White House or the outhouse, the results are all the same. And 1 out of 5 will be affected. I'm born and raised in Baltimore City. I come from a very extreme family, if you will. My mother just retired after 53 years of gainful employment. Second longest employer in Mercy Hospital history. She started out at 15 years old drawing blood for $5 a pop. 2 years ago, retired as a nuclear physicist on the board of Mercy Hospital. My brother wanted to be an attorney his whole life. By the time he passed the bar and graduated law school, he was literally blinded and student debt. He had no idea where he was going to turn or how he was going to get out of it. Today, he resides in the White House as a practicing attorney, practicing pensions and benefits. My father died as a direct result of the reason why we're all here today. He never held a job a day in his life. He taught me one thing: if and when I go to prison, how to conduct myself. I lived with that after-school special. I lived with a person that I hated and I was never going to become, and I was definitely never going to do drugs or alcohol because I saw what it made him do to me, to my mother, to my brother, to my sister, and I would never, ever, ever, ever do it. As a matter of fact, I excelled in everything that I did to make sure I did not become that man. And you're going to hear in my story that a common theme in my life is going into things with a closed mind and a closed heart, because I have that job that I told you about, and that job consists of knowing everything, and because I don't do well with conforming or authority, you tell me what I need to do, I tell you I need to F off. Not only did I become that man, I was worse than him. Me, on the other hand, I got my first skateboard at the age of 7 years old. And that night when my mother put me to bed, she said, "Brandon, what do you want me to do with the skateboard?" I said, "I want it in bed with me." She said, "Why?" I said, "Because if I die, I want it to come with me." It was like God had came down and handed me the Holy Grail in the form of a skateboard. You might be the best ping pong player in the world, but God might not see fit to put a paddle in your hand. The moment I got that skateboard, I knew I was going to be a professional skateboarder. I ate it, I breathed it, I slept it, I dreamt it. At 15, I'm designing my pro model for Pal Peralta. At 15, I'm touring the world with Tony Hawk. I have a private tutor that flies with me. At 14, I'm the first skateboarder in the world to ever be endorsed by Gatorade. They're flying me out to Chicago to the Quaker Oats building where they made Gatorade at the time. They put me on one treadmill, they put Michael Jordan on another treadmill right next to me. They put wires down our noses and down our throats, and they give us each Gatorade to see the effects that it has on different sports players. Much like my mother, my brother, and now looking back on it, my father as well, I carried a trait that they possessed. And that trait was, despite any and all adverse consequences that came my way, I did what I had to do to get what I wanted to get. And unfortunately, that trait followed through in my drinking and drugging career. And you're going to hear in my story that I got to the point where anything, and I mean anything, between me and that next bag, bottle, or pill must and will go, and it's not personal, it's just business. I didn't want to do it, but I didn't know how to not do it, because I sat in these seats with a closed mind and a closed heart comparing out, saying, God bless that guy, but like I'm internally unique, because I know. After all, mother nuclear physicist, brother attorney in the White House. Father died as a direct result. I was never going to be him. First skateboarder endorsed by Gatorade, hanging out with Michael Jordan, traveling the world with Tony Hawk, private tutor that comes with. So in between that skateboarding career, I can't tell you about the time when I found drugs and alcohol and realized that that was my destiny, right? Because all I can do with you is share with you my story. I can't speak for the masses. My story is one of this. I wasn't the kid that walked in class 20 minutes late thinking that everyone was staring at me. I was the kid that walked in class 20 minutes late thinking that everybody was waiting for me. I suffered some low self-esteem, but the reason why I was so bad at the end was because of my drinking and drugging. I didn't lack options. I didn't lack opportunities. I didn't lack goals, dreams, admiration. I had all that in abundance. This is my story. Keep in mind, the disease of addiction does not discriminate Yale or jail, White House or the outhouse. No one is immune from this thing. It does not care about age, race, creed, religion, lack of religion, sexual identity. It does not care. Does it? So I was on one of my first tours, and I'm with a fella by the name of Mike Vallely. And Mike Vallely catches me with some drugs on this tour, and he says, "Get rid of the drugs or you're kicked off the tour." I throw the drugs down the sewer. We finish the demo, get back to the hotel, I meet a girl, I have her drive me back to the sewer, I fish the drugs back out. Long story short, he catches me with the drugs, he kicks me off the tour. I get a phone call from my mentor, Tony Hawk. He said, "Brandon, we have one of two options we can do with you. We can put you into treatment, you can save your life, you can continue to be a professional skateboarder, or you can quit the team." From 7 to 16, I ate it, I breathed it, I slept it, I dreamt it. My life was skateboarding. In a blink of an eye, not even a breath of fresh air in my lungs, I said I quit. Because what I know is I'm the kind of alcoholic that I tend to shy away from conversations that consist of the words honest, reliable, or dependable. Because those conversations that consist of those words do not help me get one more. And you heard, anything between me and that next one must and will go. But see, my delusional alcoholic mind tells me this. The skateboarding world needs me. It cannot go on without me. I am an asset. In reality, the skateboarding world did not need me. It went on quite fine without me, and I'm a liability. Unfortunately, I'm the last person to know that. Because I'm too smart for my own good and I know everything. So now about 2 months into living with my mother and my girlfriend, they come to me one day and they said, "Brandon, we have a great idea for you." I said, "What's that?" They said, "We want you to go to treatment." Now, I had just turned down this deal from Tony Hawk. They present to me this opportunity. I think about it for a second. I say, "That's a great idea. A, I have the time. B, I'm going to report to said treatment center. And I'm going to report back to my mother and my girlfriend why I'm not you nut jobs, nor will I ever be." Overreaction at best. Caught me at a bad time, on a bad way, in a bad day. They checked me into this first treatment that I had the privilege to enter at the age of 17 in Baltimore City. I'm ill as a research monkey. I'm detoxing off heroin. It's about 10:30 at night. They put me in this big cafeteria with this like interrogation style lighting shining in my eyes. Cafeteria is completely empty. And out of nowhere, this older black gentleman walks up to me. He says, "White boy, what are you doing here?" I say, "Heroin." He says, "How old are you?" I say, 17. He says, "Do yourself a favor and don't turn 18 in a place like this." As quick as he came, he left. He nor I had no idea the significance of this conversation would ever have on my life. Mind you, I'm going in to prove a point. Closed mind, closed heart, comparing out why I'm not you people. You know what I can tell you about that gentleman? Where the 4 teeth were placed in his mouth, because at the time I had all mine. He's 70 to 75, I'm 17. He's black, I'm white. He smokes crack. My delusional alcoholic mind says I successfully do heroin. He's homeless. I live with my mother and my girlfriend. God bless that man. I'm so happy he found the answer he's in search of. You know what I can't tell you about that facility? I can't tell you about the relapse prevention packet they're shoving down my throat, the healthy or unhealthy boundaries they're trying to instill in me, or my therapist's name for that matter, because if I can tell you about those things, that might mean that I can relate to being one of you people, and I want no part. I leave that treatment center, disease untreated, no defense against me and that first drink or drug, and he was right. I didn't turn 18 in a facility like that. I turned 19, 20, 22, 23, 24, 25, 27, 28, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35 in a jail or a treatment center. And every year I'd sit on whatever bunk of whatever cell of whatever jail I happened to be in, or whatever bed of whatever treatment center I happened to be in, and say, maybe if me, myself, Brandon Novak, would have listened to that man with an open mind and an open heart, I would not continuously find myself in this situation day after day, month after month, year after year. Meaning that it was fully self-induced. I had now created or painted this picture for which I live in. So in between all those birthdays, I would go to these meetings, and what I would do is I would like loiter with the intent to recover. And what that looks like is I would get a sponsor, I would get a home group, I could fellowship fairly easy, figured I could get this recovery thing through osmosis, through her love, through his wallet, through your acceptance, through your approval. But then you would say, work those 12 steps, and I'd say, whoa, whoa, whoa. Overreaction at best. Left to my own devices, and what my own devices looks like is Brandon attends Brandon's Anonymous, Brandon sponsors Brandon, and Brandon is Brandon's God. And now for the life of me, how am I back on the corner of Eastern Avenue and Patterson Park waiting for that 55-year-old lawyer to get off work to pull around to buy my body for $40 to do with it as he will? How am I there? I didn't put my hand up in 5th grade and say, you know what, Teach? You know what looks like a very promising future for me? Becoming a homeless heroin addict that stands on the corner of Eastern Avenue and Patterson Park, prostituting his body to anybody with $40. It was not my goals, that was not my intentions, not what I set out to do. But the reality is I suffer from a disease that when it calls, I answer by any and all means necessary. It asks, I do. Because I don't have the privilege to say, nah, right now, disease, I gotta speak for 1 hour. So throughout my whole life, I was very confused, and I really believed that social acceptability equaled personal recovery. So if the home was big enough, the woman was pretty enough, the account was high enough, and the car was new enough, and you told me those things, I must be doing well. Now I trip into those movies called Jackass. These TV shows called Viva La Bam. I'm traveling the world 10 times over, doing things in life that people equate to success or happiness that some even dream of doing. But I can't keep a needle out of my arm. I'm now a millionaire 3 times over between the ages of 23, 24. But on some days, I find myself back on the corner of Eastern Avenue and Patterson Park waiting for that lawyer to pull up and buy me for an hour. Because, see, I have this disease. Follow me. If you're diagnosed as an addict or an alcoholic, this is not debatable. You can look it up in any medical dictionary you want. This is an absolute fact, which I'm about to tell you. If you're diagnosed as an addict or an alcoholic, that disease left untreated equals death. Fatal. You die. But as far as I'm aware of, it's the only fatal disease that tells me I don't have a disease on a daily basis, and to make it even more believable, it lies to me in my own voice. Follow me. Diagnose me with HIV, I'm rushing to the hospital to get medication. I don't want to die. Fatal disease. Diagnose me with cancer, I'm rushing to the hospital to get chemo. I don't want to die. Fatal disease. Diagnose me as an addict or an alcoholic. I need a glass of wine or a bag of heroin to figure out what the hell's wrong with you for diagnosing me with said disease. Just as fatal as the first 2 diseases diseases, but left to my own devices, I'll believe I don't have that disease because it lies to me in my own voice. I'll finish speaking right here, and I'll go wherever I have to go to buy heroin, and it will make complete sense to me. So now, just like in that skateboarding world, in this jackass world, paychecks are now being diverted to my second ex-fiance. Flights are no longer being booked because they say if we book him the flight, will he make the flight? If we book him the flight and he makes the flight, what condition will he be in when he gets here? Let's say we book him the flight and he makes the flight. It's the same thing that's going to happen as it did last time. We have to kick the bathroom door down at Paramount Studios and find him dead on the ground with a needle in his arm. Not a good look for the work world. My delusional alcoholic mind that I have that lies to me in my own voice tells me this. The jackass world needs me, it cannot go on without me, I am an asset. Unfortunately, it did not need me, it went on quite fine without me, and I'm a liability. Unfortunately, I'm the last person to see that because I know everything, because I sat here with a closed mind and a closed heart, saying God bless that person, but it can never happen to me. It will never happen to me. Come from better, know better. Mother, nuclear physicist, brother, attorney in the White House. First skateboarder endorsed by Gatorade, hanging out with Michael Jordan. Traveling the world with Tony Hawk, I have a private tutor that flies with me. End up in movies that break box offices several times over. Millionaire 3-4 times over between the ages of 23 and 24. See, I keep going to these meetings and I keep going to these treatment centers and I see that it works for you people, but it cannot work for me. You haven't seen what I've seen. You haven't experienced what I've experienced. You haven't felt what I felt. You didn't watch your father cut your mother's throat at the age of 7. Your father didn't take you to the strip joint at the age of 8. When he was in the back conducting business, he didn't sit you at the bar stool. And as the pretty dancing girls poured you a shot of ginger ale and Coca-Cola, you did them, they applauded. Your father gave you that look of approval. You people didn't end up in movies that broke box office records, and I had the privilege to break a lot of bones, so every time they cart me off to the emergency room, they say, hey, this is that guy from those movies, he can't be a junkie, so they're very generous with the script pad. You people didn't get paid to get high like I got paid to get high. Because what I didn't tell you is now I'm doing appearances in nightclubs. And they say, Mr. Novak, what would you like in your green room or in your rider? I'd say some heroin, some cocaine, some Xanax, and some wine. They would get me those substances, I would take pictures, I would sign autographs. At the end of the night, I get a check for $10,000. It is now my job to get high. I have that disease, that delusional alcoholic way of thinking that tells me I don't have a disease. It lies to me in my own voice. You people tell me my life's unmanageable. I believe that my life is unmanageable, but my bank account seems pretty manageable. Social acceptability equals personal recovery. I gotta be doing well. I don't know up from down, hot from cold, left from right at this point. I come up with a foolproof plan of how I'm gonna beat my disease of addiction. I'm not going back to treatment because it cannot work for me. I'll get to the point where I figured out that it can, does, and will, but I'm not there yet. But I'm not going back. I'm too smart for my own good. I go in there, I tell the counselors how to counsel me. I outthink myself out of every seat that I sit in. I'm gonna move to Helsinki, Finland. Strap me up to a polygraph, I will pass with flying colors. I will have every police officer in the United States of America pat me on the back saying, boy, we wish everybody was as honest as you. This plan is gonna work. I love my mother more than anything in the world. I will bet her life on it right now. If I'm lying, may she die in front of me. That's how much I believe this move I'm about to make. Because I have that disease that lies to me in my own voice. And I sit here with a closed mind and a closed heart saying that could never be me. I'm gonna move to Helsinki, Finland. They don't even speak my language. I can go there, I can regroup, I can rebrand, I can reassess, I can reevaluate, I can redo life, and I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it, I swear to God. From a very young age, my mother always told me, show me who you walk with and I'll tell you who you are. And that transcended into social acceptability equals personal recovery. What's transcended into learning that I'm filling an internal void with an external solution. Follow me, there is a pattern. So I get on a flight, I go to Helsinki, Finland, I get off the plane, I go to a 5-star hotel. Show me who you walk with, I'll tell you who you are. Social acceptability, personal recovery. And I go to this very nice, swank 5-star hotel and I go right to the lobby bar. And I order glass after glass of wine. And I meet a gentleman at the bar, he gives me a phone number, I'm now having bags and bags of heroin delivered to me. How did this happen? I just bet my mother's life on it and I will do anything for that woman. That woman has never said no to me. It happened because I have a disease that lies to me in my own voice, and left to my own devices, Brandon attends Brandon's Anonymous, Brandon sponsors Brandon, Brandon's God, I'll believe that voice that lies to me from my own brain. And I'm in the bathroom, I'm doing what I do, and I call my sponsor, Lex. I said, Lex, how did this happen? This was not supposed to be this way. I didn't want to do what I was doing in Baltimore or Philadelphia and Finland. I've literally moved across the world to escape that. He said, well, do you have a second, Mr. Know-It-All? Can I have a minute of your time, genius? I said, yeah, Lex. He said, I guess we skimmed over the part where we talk about geographical change does not equal recovery. You can't shake your shadow. You take you with you everywhere you go. I put you in Vermont, you shoot heroin. I put you in Finland, you shoot heroin. It rains, you shoot heroin. It snows, you shoot heroin. It's sunny, you shoot heroin. A baby's born, you shoot heroin. A child dies, you shoot heroin. They talk about what triggers are. My triggers are when my eyelids open. I will justify why any time, place, feeling, or sensation makes sense to shoot dope. I'll go shoot dope with this tree until I get tired of carrying it. And when I get tired of carrying it, it does not matter because my disease says you don't have the privilege to put it down. He said, do you have another second, Mr. Genius? Can I have another minute of your time? Yeah, Lex. The drinking and the drugging is not your problem. What do you need is not my problem. I've literally just moved across the world. I've given it my homes. I've given it my careers. I've given it my family. I've given it my women. I've given it my bank accounts. I've given it my sexuality when it asks for it. What do you mean it's not my problem? That was like a shotgun blast to the head. It's not your problem. And if you have another second, I'll tell you what is. Do you have a minute? Mr. Important, Mr. Genius, Mr. Know-It-All? Yeah, Lex. It's not your problem, it's your solution. Your problem is you. Your problem is your thinking, your attitude, and your behavior. If you haven't picked up on it yet, but trust me, I have, the common denominator in your problems is you, Brandon Novak. Which brings me back that the world doesn't have to get right with me, I have to get right with it. So I jump on a plane and I come back. Now at this point, I've been in 10 inpatient treatment centers. I've lost count of outpatients and detoxes, medevac from 4 different states, from 4 different overdoses, from 4 different hospitals. My mother has already bought me a plot. People have taken life insurance policies out on me. I'm about to. I'm not there yet, but I'm about to wake up after being on life support for 7 days. You can look at an interview that my mother did on the internet, and I had no idea this interview existed. And the interview goes like this. I used to pray not to get that phone call in the middle of the night. I used to pray not to get that phone call in the middle of the night. To find myself now praying to get that phone call. Praying to get that phone call just so she could have a sound night's sleep. Social acceptability equals personal recovery. I'm no fool by any means. Come from better, know better. Mother nuclear physicist, brother attorney in the White House. First skateboarder endorsed by Gatorade, hang out with Michael Jordan, travel the world with Tony Hawk. In movies, break box office records, millionaire 3 times over between ages 23 and 24. Have no high school diploma, have no GED, was not kindly asked to leave the 10th grade for drugs and alcohol. No fool by any means. Lived with that after school special, swore that I would never become that man. Excelled at everything I did to not become that man. Now I decided I'm going to write a book. I get my GED after the first book was published in prison. And the only reason why I took the GED in the joint was because A, I had the time, and B, if you pass the GED in the joint, you got a pizza party supplied by Domino's. So I don't know about anybody here, but that was a no-brainer. But here's the hit. I aced that GED like a Harvard graduate. I did not miss one question. And looking back on it now, I clearly see why I did so well. It's because it was my idea. The reason why I did so bad in so many years, so many treatment centers, doctor's offices, psychiatrist's offices, is because it wasn't my idea. I told you I don't conform well, I don't like authority. Tell me what I need to do, I tell you why you need to F off. All of a sudden it's my idea. If it was my idea to go to any one of those treatment centers in any amount of those years, I would have excelled at a rapid pace and been a billboard for any treatment center, any 12-step program. But if it doesn't make sense to me, it's wrong. So keep in mind, the book gets published before I get my GED in prison. I decided I'm going to write a book, the book gets published. I'm now a published author who's written an autobiography addiction memoir. I'm now a published author who's written a book on addiction, and the book becomes a New York Times seller. I'm now receiving hundreds of thousands of pieces of mail from all over the world in all these different languages of people like you saying, I read your book, I didn't want my story to get as bad as yours, I have 30 days. Of people like you saying, I read your book, I understand why my father picked the needle over coming to have dinner with me on the weekends. It's not that I was a bad daughter, it's that he suffered with the disease of addiction. My delusional alcoholic mind told me I just wrote the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, or the basic text of Narcotics Anonymous. And for those of you who don't know what that book is, that's like the equivalent to the Bible to a churchgoer. It is our guide of living. It is our way of life. Any of us that are actively in a 12-step program, we bow down to that book. But I have that delusional alcoholic mind that tells me I don't have that disease, and it lies to me in my own voice. And now I've just written a book while getting high, and the book is on addiction. It becomes a New York Times seller. Too smart for my own good. Now I really have a closed mind and a closed heart. Now I'm really internally unique. What works for you cannot or will not work for me. The night of my book release in Times Square in New York City, I have my literary agent there, I have my managers there, my publishers are there, and I have my friend with me from Baltimore, but we don't have any heroin that day. And they would not give me any money for any heroin that day, because what I didn't know then that I know now is it would not be a good look sitting at a Barnes & Noble doing an autograph signing of a book that I wrote on addiction while nodding out due to being on heroin. But I told you, I don't have that disease that I can say, hey, disease, not right now. I gotta work for 2 hours. Anything between me and that thing is gonna go. Not personal, it's business. So as they wheel my books in on this big dolly in these boxes, me and my buddy from Baltimore, we take one look at each other, we don't say a word, but we have a complete conversation, that language of the heart, untreated, if you will. I stand up, he stands up, in uniform precision, we walk over, I grab 2 boxes of my books, he grabs 2 boxes of my books, we go right to the Amtrak train station, catch the next train from New York City to Baltimore City. I'm now autographing, signing, and selling my books, autobiography addiction memoirs, to go and buy more heroin. How am I here? Nuclear physicist, brother attorney in the White House, former professional skateboarder, first guy by Gatorade, hanging out with Jordan, traveling the world with Tony Hawk. Been in movies, break box office records, millionaire 3 times over. Now a New York Times selling author who's written a book on addiction. Father dies as a direct result. Swore I was never going to become him. Mother bought me a plot. People taking policies out on me. About to wake up after being on life support for 7 days. My mom's just went to God and said, God, please cure him, or kill me. I can't take it anymore. The disease of addiction does not discriminate. Yale or jail, outhouse or the White House, results all the same. 1 out of 5 will be affected. So I finished what I'm doing in Baltimore. I go back to that house in Philadelphia where I lived with my second ex-fiance. And a common theme of my story is that the locks tend to stop working. I put my key in the lock and it doesn't work. So I do the next best thing and I kick the door in. And I kick that door in. The home is completely empty. She had taken my clothes, her clothes, the furniture, our cats, the paintings, you name it, it's gone. And I found myself in a fetal position crying uncontrollably in this house because I find that this house is now a spitting image of me. This big empty shell of a house now holds a big empty shell of a man. And maybe if I would have listened to that first man in that first treatment center at the age of 17, they said, do yourself a favor, kid. Don't turn 18 in a place like this. Maybe if I would have had an open mind and an open heart, I would not be here yet again. And I don't want to be. But I don't know how to not be. So at this time, my phone goes off. And it's my mother. She lives in Baltimore City currently. And I don't know if anyone here remembers, but about 3 years and some change ago, in Baltimore, the police killed a young black man by the name of Freddie Gray. And when that incident occurred, my mother lives about 12 blocks from where that happened. Baltimore City was like the movie The Purge. They were robbing, they were looting, they were shooting, they were stealing, burning blocks down, burning police cars down. There was a 9 p.m. curfew. The National Guard was on every corner with tanks and machine guns. And my mother called me and she was terrified. She said, Brandon, can you please come make sure I'm safe? My intentions were to do just that. My intentions. You think my disease gives a shit about my intentions? Let me show you what my actions dictated. I jumped on a train, went to Baltimore, ran up into her room, took her room completely over, left that bedroom once a day to go buy $180 worth of heroin and cocaine. She had now taken to sleeping on the living room sofa as her bed because her next best thought was, Brandon's gonna burn the house down, and if he burns the house down, if I'm sleeping on the sofa in the living room, I can surely make it out alive. I leave that bedroom once a day, 4:30 a.m., not a minute before, not a minute after, my eyes open. I don't have a watch, I don't have an alarm clock. My disease says, get up. 4:30 in the morning, religiously. Every morning, I'd wake up and I would sneak down the stairs. And I knew exactly what step to step on. Because God forbid I stepped in the wrong step in the wrong spot and it made a noise and she said, Brandon, can you make me something to eat? I can. Not right now. This is not personal, it's business. And I would get to the bottom of those stairs and I would get on all fours and I would army crawl over to the sofa, which is now her bed. And this hand would grab her purse. This hand would grab the bell that was attached to her purse. And I would gently pull it down because God forbid that bell rang and she said, what are you doing in my purse? Don't ask. Don't ask. I would get the $180 and I would go out and I was going to get what I was going to get. And once again, one day I came home and my hotshot attorney brother from the White House had driven down from D.C. and my key doesn't work. I respect my mother, so I don't kick her door in. Right? See that? I respect her. The abnormal has become the normal. I'm living on an animalistic level, and I thought that that was respect. Never mind making her sleep on the sofa because she was in fear I was going to burn her house down. But God forbid I kick her door in. The disconnection of reality is what I'm trying to show you people. And I get back, and my brother and my mother come to the door. And my mother opens the door and she said, Brandon, I can no longer love you to death. You have to go. Mother, nuclear physicist, brother, attorney in the White House, former professional skateboarder, hanging out with Jordan, Gatorade, traveler with Tony Hawk, movies that break box office records, millionaire a few times over, New York Times selling author who's written a book on addiction, in theory and on paper, very successful individual, had did things in life that people equate to success or happiness and that some even dream of doing. Let me show you what reality looks like. The flip side of that coin, because I sat here with a closed mind and a closed heart saying that will never be me. The reality is, I'm a 35-year-old man. My mother's bought me a plot. People have taken life insurance policies out on me. Just woke up from being on life support for 7 days. I've been in 12 inpatient treatment centers. I've lost count of outpatients and detoxes. Medevac, 4 different hospitals, 4 different states, 4 different overdoses. 20-year IV heroin and cocaine users straight. My worldly possessions, everything I own in the world consists of this: 8 scarves, 2 jackets, 3 socks, 1 stick of deodorant, fits into a bag that doubles as a pillow, and 4 cigarette butts that I've just picked up out of the street. All because I sat here and I knew everything. So internally unique. You guys haven't suffered what I've suffered. With that, a police officer comes around the corner and serves me with a restraining order. So now I'm a 35-year-old man, very successful in my own right, and did things that people dream of doing. My disease says, this is what I'll let you own. 8 scarves, 2 jackets, 3 socks, 1 stick of deodorant, fits into a bag, that was a pillow, 4 cigarette butts I've just picked up off the street, a needle, a spoon, and a restraining order. That's what my disease said I can own. Didn't put my hand up in 5th grade and say, teacher, that's what I want to be. This isn't quite the audience that I can tell what happens after this point, because it's like really, really, really X-rated and there's no kind way to put this. But some traumatic events ensued. Supposed to board a flight to Fort Lauderdale. I get to the airport. Before I go to the airport, I stop in East Baltimore and I go to buy some heroin and cocaine. And when I go to buy the heroin and cocaine, I get robbed really bad. When I get robbed, they rip my clothes basically completely off me. They're hanging on by me tying them back together. I don't have underwear on because my life is now consumed by the getting and using and finding ways and means to get more. I'm not the kind of alcoholic that takes time out of his day to wash these underwear and find an imaginary dresser in an alley to put them in. And I get to the airport to get on the flight to go to Fort Lauderdale. And the 2 things I've learned in my career: I never win an argument with a judge or a TSA airport security agent. What they say goes, and when I get up the line to get my tickets, he says, Mr. Novak, are you under the influence of anything? I say no. She says, I believe you are. You will not fly for 72 hours. Not like the next flight or tomorrow morning, 3 days. My delusional alcoholic mind tells me this, the one that lies to me in my own voice, that makes me believe the unbelievable time and time again. It tells me that this woman knows who I am. Her son or daughter has a problem with the disease of addiction. She's blaming her kid's disease on me. How dare her piss on my parade? In reality, nobody dressed the way I was dressed will be allowed to board a flight, let alone stand here and talk to you right now. I get out of line. Something very imperative happened in that moment. God dressed up in the form of a TSA airport security agent did for me what I could not do for myself. Because I did not want to get on that flight. My heart was beating 1,000,000 miles an hour like I just shot 10 kilos of cocaine. I knew it was going to end really bad, but I don't have the privilege to not get on it because my disease says go. I get out of line, I call that same sponsor, Lex, that I called from Finland. This is Memorial Day 2015. I said, Lex, I'm stranded at BWI Airport and I want to kill myself. He said, nah, what we're going to do, we're going to leave our families, we're going to leave our cookouts, we're going to leave our loved ones, we're going to leave our children, and we're going to come pick you up. That addict that was deemed unhelpful or unfixable. Remember how I started this story? You showing up for me when I didn't show up for myself. You loving me when I didn't love myself. You caring for me when I didn't care for myself. You people giving voices to the voiceless. We're going to show up for you yet again. We're going to leave our levels. We're going to leave our cookouts. You're going to get on a train. You're going to come back to Philly. We're going to pick you up. And we're going to take you back to treatment. A series of events that happen. I get up there. They take me to treatment. And I've been to this treatment center 4 times prior. And every time I'd sit in the same chair with the same intake coordinator, it looked like this. She'd say, okay, Mr. Novak, your insurance covers 90 days. I'd say, in theory, 90 days sounds great, but in reality, I'm more of like a 45-day kind of fella. I have this job to go to, this state to be at, and this woman to see, and she'd laugh at me each and every time. And she would say, sweetheart, you have no idea. Anything and everything that you put in front of your recovery does not or will not matter because it will go. And I said, well, clearly you didn't see my resume. What happens now is I've been demoralized in just such a fashion from drugs and alcohol. I've been beaten into that state of reasonableness that now you got my attention. And I'm in the same chair with the same intake coordinator. We're having the same conversation, and it goes like this. Mr. Novak, your insurance covers 90 days. And when she gave me that offer, I could not come back with a counter offer. Because if I said no, that entailed an explanation. I was literally beaten speechless by my disease of addiction, and thank God. All I could do was shake my head yes. She said, sweetheart, you're in no condition to do intake. Get up to detox. I'll see you in 4 days. I get up to detox. I'm still wearing the same clothes because I told you what my worldly possessions consist of, so I don't have the privilege of putting new pants on. I own 8 scarves, 2 jackets, 3 socks, 1 stick of deodorant, 4 cigarette butts that I picked up off the ground, a needle, a spoon, and a restraining order. And I get up to detox, and there's this 19-year-old tech working. And he said, Mr. Novak, you're back. And I said, aren't you a genius? You don't miss a beat, do you, boy? He said, your clothes are not rehab-oriented. You need some underwear. You need some sweatpants. You need some slides. And the fact of the matter was, I never prayed for such simple articles of clothing in my life, but my disease does not allow me to own that shit. He said, come downstairs to the donations box of this Catholic Charities Rehab, and we're going to see if we can find you a pair of 2nd, 3rd, 5th, 10th hand pair of used underwear. Mother nuclear physicist, brother attorney in the White House. Father dies as a direct result, swore I would never be him. First skateboarder with Gatorade, hanging out with Jordan, travel world with Tony Hawk, movies, break box office records, millionaire a few times over. New York Times selling author who's written a book on addiction, had done things in life people equate to success or happiness, some even dream of doing. In reality, I'm a 35-year-old man standing in the basement of my 13th inpatient treatment center as a 19-year-old kid thumbs through donations boxes looking for a pair of 10th hand used underwear. How? I'll tell you how. Closed mind, closed heart, knowing everything, comparing out. What happened was God showed up in the basement of that Catholic Charities Rehab in the form of a gift of desperation. He met me right there as this 19-year-old kid looks for a pair of 10th hand used underwear. And the kid doesn't find any used underwear. But what he finds is a pair of size 40 women's sweatpants with no drawstring, a woman's tank top, and a pair of size 13 Jesus sandals. I don't know how alert or attentive anybody in this audience, but I'm not a woman, and I don't wear a size 13. When that gift of desperation appeared, I felt a sense of willingness unlike I've anything experienced. I get upstairs, I get a shower, I gladly put those women's clothing on, I get that Baltimore City smell off me. I successfully complete that 90-day treatment center. And what I learned in that treatment center is that my mentality will create the reality for which I live in. And they taught me if you change your perception, you can change your world. From that 90-day treatment center stay, I went and I lived in a sober living house for 1 year. I had been on parole and probation from 16 to 35, never a free day in between. A year into my process of recovery, sobriety, what have you, I signed my release papers. I'm literally a free man that can go anywhere with anyone, anytime I like. I no longer live in that self-induced prison that consists of a 4-block radius that costs me $10 to get out of on a daily basis. I decided I wanted to get my 2-year medallion abroad. I flew to Paris. Told you, I walked in, 8 scarves, 2 jackets, 3 socks, 1 stick of deodorant, 4 cigarette butts I picked off the ground, a needle, a spoon, a restraining order. Mother went to God and said, cure him, kill me. Bought a plot, life insurance policy taken, woken up on life support. Decided I was gonna fly to Paris to get my 2-year medallion. That same mother that served me with the restraining order, that same mother that bought me a plot, that same mother that went to God and said, cure him, or kill me, called me 9 months into my process of recovery and said, Brandon, I hate when you come to visit. I said, why? She said, because I get so sad when you leave. That book deal that I was telling you about, that I stole my own books to take to go sell and buy more heroin. I had a 3-book deal. When I stole my own books for my release, they ripped that contract up on site. 9 months ago, my 2nd book came out. I have 3 more books to follow. In 2 weeks, I will have the first ever addiction graphic novel out. I have a documentary going to the Sundance and the Cannes Film Festival. This is not me bragging or boasting by any means. It's me simply saying, if you want what I have, do what I do and you can get what I got. Or don't do what I did, which is sit there with a closed mind and a closed heart saying that could never be me. Went to that first treatment center with a closed mind and a closed heart. Overreaction at best. Bad time, bad way, bad day. Wasn't buying what you were selling, not drinking your Kool-Aid. I now work in the drug and alcohol treatment field. Most important, this is the basis of everything that I've just talked about for God knows how long I talked, is that I just celebrated 3 years of continuous sobriety last week without the use of a drink or a drug. That is the reality. I am now a son to my mother, I'm a brother to my brother, a brother to my sister, uncles to my nieces and nephews. I'm a productive member of society. I'm a productive tax-paying member of society. I just settled on my first home I ever bought last Friday. I did not do this. I am not capable of doing this on my own. Until I had that spiritual experience, that was the only way I had a dog in this fight. Sobriety has given me everything that drugs and alcohol promised me. What I learned is that my history does not have to dictate my future. As long as I'm breathing, it's never too late. The disease of addiction is not a death sentence. I'm closing with this story. There's a father that works from home, and he's swamped in paperwork. And he's trying to figure out a way to buy 1 or 2 days because his kid keeps banging on the knee, Dad, take me out to play, take me out to play. He's trying to think of a way to buy 1 or 2 days, and he gets it. He looks on his desk in his office, and he sees a big picture of a puzzle of a world map. The father thinks to himself, I got it. He completely dismantles the picture of the puzzle of the world map and he throws it on the floor. He says, son, when you put the picture of the puzzle of the world map back together, I'll take you out to play. He leaves the office surely thinking he bought 1 or 2 days. 20 minutes later, the kid comes back, bangs his dad on the knee. Dad, I did it. Father's thinking to himself, impossible. Walks back into that office as sure as the day is long, the picture of the puzzle of the world map's put back together. He said, son, how'd you do it? Son said, Dad, it was simple. On the back of the picture of the puzzle of the world map was a picture of a man. I put the man back together, the world fell back in place. Together we stand, divided I die. My name's Brandon. Thank you for listening.
Go.
So I want to take Brandon and then do a group photo, and then we'll pick the winner of the raffle ticket, and that's it.